Daniel Negreanu is about to play 6 deuce suited. Phil Hellmuth opens to 800 with King 10 offsuit, the kind of loose early raise he uses to test the waters and try to play pots post-flop. Negreanu immediately leans on it, re-raising to 3,600. With 6-2 suited, this is not about raw card strength. It is about punishing Phil's wide open, isolating the weakest range at the table, and taking the betting lead in position.
Look, who lost the last pot?
Doyle Brunson cold calls with pocket jacks, a classic trap that keeps worse hands in and avoids turning his medium-high pair into a bluff catcher against a 4-bet. Getting the price and curious to navigate post-flop, Phil comes along. That is a very Negreanu result. His pre-flop 3-bet range contains plenty of big queens, overpairs, and high card backdoors, so checking back keeps his range wide and ambiguous while realizing equity with his suited wheel trash. It also invites Phil to fire turns from out of position and forces Doyle to reveal how comfortable he is with jacks on a coordinated board. When Negreanu declines to c-bet, he preserves the option to attack later streets if either opponent betrays weakness with sizing or timing. The turn is the 4 of spades, a deceptively important card. It adds real backdoor flush pressure while also nudging straight grids like 3-6 into view. Phil leads 7,000 into about 19,000, a classic mid-sizing that tries to win the pot before the board becomes scarier. Against Daniel, that size usually reads as 1 pair or air rather than a queen or better that wants protection and volume. Daniel just calls. He is not chasing, he is keeping Phil's bluffs alive, protecting his own strong hands that would play this way, slow-played queens and some spade floats, and setting up maximum leverage on rivers that amp up the story. Doyle, now sandwiched in hating life with jacks, lets it go. The river is the 2 of spades, completing the backdoor spade flush and putting 4 to a wheel in the picture. It is a nightmare card for capped 1-pair holdings. Phil drops a 6,000 block bet, a telltale sizing that asks for a cheap showdown and implicitly admits he does not love his hand. Daniel pounces and raises to 46,000. What does he represent? From Phil's seat, it is coherent for Daniel to have exactly the hands his line preserved, 2 spades that checked flop multi-way, called the turn lead, and now raise for value, or a slow-played queen with a spade that upgrades from bluff catcher to thin value on a bet-blocked river.
Speech time. It's gotta come.
He might have like 6-9 offsuit. It's Daniel. Good bet.
And Phil lays it down.
Finally got there. Took a while, but
6-9.
I had you.
He nailed it. Look at that. That's sick. Yeah. That's not gonna look good on TV.
Yeah, whatever that is, it's not gonna look
Whatever
good.
it was.
That's gonna be bad for a profile, unfortunately.
Little do they know, Daniel did have the best hand.
I play so bad. I know Daniel's playing the rush and he's going to re-raise.
Yes, that was what I was doing.
I knew it.
The analysis post-flop is not the time to get it right.
You
You
didn't
want to
have
get it during the hand.
You didn't have a
Queen
pair?
7,
You couldn't call?
5, 4.
Imagine you made like a call with 2 3s.
Huh?
What are you doing betting 6,000?
That's when I'm supposed to pick off all the chips from him. When he
bet 6,000?
starts messing with me.
That's
and
if you have a like,
You got dual smile.
Daniel Negreanu is looking down at 6-5 offsuit, but he's up against his nemesis of 20 years, Phil Ivey, who's holding King-Jack suited. Ivey raises to 75,000. Most players would probably fold in Daniel's spot.
No choice, can't fold it. Gotta see a flop in the big blind.
There's the call. So it's Daniel versus Phil.
Ivey is 64% favorite for now, but the flop comes 8-6-6 and Negreanu hits trips.
8 of hearts. I don't see Phil falling for this.
Phil checks too. I don't know how, but he can somehow feel Daniel is strong here.
A king on the turn.
Now I see him falling for it a little.
Negreanu wants Phil second-guessing every assumption. Wants him trapped between is he bluffing and is he setting me up? What looks like hesitation is actually misdirection. This is less about cards, more about control.
Daniel leads. Phil now with top pair.
Even if you think Daniel has a 6, you can't just go folding top pair.
Negreanu's sizing here leaves Ivey about 3.5 to 1 on a call. And with top pair, that's usually a no-brainer. But what Daniel's really doing here is laying the groundwork for the river. He's planting the seed that says, if you call now, you're going to have to call big later. This is psychological compounding. Pressure applied in stages. Daniel is hoping that Phil did indeed hit that king on the turn, and he's going to try to make him sweat like a maniac.
He calls. The river is a jack.
Wow, Daniel is running better than Prefontaine.
Daniel value bets his trips. Phil forced to call with top 2.
Nope.
So obvious you have a 6. Got 350.
Trip sixes. Phil shows King Jack for top 2. Daniel's trip sixes take 5.
Good call, good call. Good thing you didn't raise. That was smart. You know what you're doing.
Daniel Negreanu has pocket kings.
Raises?
Queen high.
Queen high?
He opens the pot to $1,200, a classic early position flex that targets the blinds and sets up a pot he can steer in position. Phil Hellmuth, smooth, calls, choosing pot control and range protection over a thin 3-bet. Eugene Kachelov comes along as well with ace-9, content to realize in position and take a multi-way flop against 2 ranges that can play face-up on ace-high textures. Kachelov checks the ace-high flop, protecting a top-pair hand with a middling kicker and letting the action declare itself. Negreanu checks behind. Pocket kings hate attacking into 2 players on an ace board, and the slow down keeps weaker hands and bluffs alive while controlling the pot. Hellmuth takes the invitation and fires $1,200, a small stab meant to fold out nothing hands and price set against exactly these cautious checks. Kachelov calls, signaling he is not afraid of a little heat with top pair. Negreanu overcalls, a cagey line that keeps both ranges uncapped and disguises the true strength of kings by wearing the same hoodie as ace-X.
You too, Daniel?
Yeah.
My God.
You didn't expect 2 calls, right?
No,
Just one.
I was expecting 1 call.
No.
All 3 check the turn after the 8 rolls off. That card changes little. Kachelov sees no need to inflate with his kicker problem. Helmuth's one-and-done bluff correctly shuts down into 2 sticky ranges, and Negreanu continues the sandbag, preserving the option to spring value or bluff catch on rivered scare cards. The river drops the king of clubs and the trap wakes up. Kachelov leads $4,200, thin value that hopes to get paid by worse aces and denies a free showdown to stubborn pairs. Negreanu answers with a raise to $14,200, selling a story consistent with a slow-played monster or a patient ace that improved, and crucially targeting the very hand Kachelov is value betting.
I think Phil's Hollywooding a bit here since he bet out on the flop.
Hellmuth gets out of the way, his earlier poke having run its course. Faced with a credible, disciplined raise from a player who never overbets his bluffs, Kachelov has to reassess whether ace-9 is really a cash-out hand or a tip jar.
And Eugene folds.
I had at least that.
Daniel Negreanu opens the action with ace-queen, one of those classic Broadway hands that works beautifully as a raise.
Come on, Daniel, every hand?
Yes, every hand.
Jeez.
Every hand till Saturday.
Saturday, he gets his highlights touched up.
But when Barbero calls with pocket deuces, he is entering the hand with a completely different script. Small pairs are not strong in isolation.
Go, Kenny.
Asham and Kenny call.
Here we go.
Got some of that loose cannon money.
For Negreanu, this looks like a board he can lean on. The paired deuce means there are fewer combinations of trips available, and with his pre-flop raise, he can credibly represent all the strong aces and overpairs. So he fires $3,000, aiming to pick up the pot uncontested or extract value from pairs below the ace. Barbero, though, is sitting on quads. If he raises here, he narrows Negreanu's range immediately to hands that can continue, and with quads, that is the last thing he wants. By just calling, he lets Negreanu's entire bluffing range stay alive, setting a trap that is as much psychological as mathematical. The turn brings the ace. This is where the hand shifts. For Negreanu, the ace is one of the best cards in the deck. His hand improves to top pair, top kicker, and it strengthens the story he's been telling since pre-flop. But this same card is a gift to Barbero. Now Negreanu is less likely to slow down, more likely to stack off, and completely unaware he is drawing dead. Negreanu checks, perhaps to control the size of the pot, but Barbero is not letting this street pass by. He bets $9,200, a number that looks perfectly believable as a value bet with a medium ace or even a stubborn pocket pair. Negreanu calls, convinced he is still far ahead of the likely range. Negreanu checks again, expecting Barbero to take a stab. Barbero obliges with $20,000, a sizing that pressures Negreanu's entire calling range but still looks callable with top pair. From Negreanu's seat, folding feels impossible.
I'm thinking like sixes or sevens. Sixes or sevens are good for me. I had you on ace-4, unfortunately, on the turn. So if you had ace-4, then you just made a straight. Huh.
Drop the stakes you play at in the comments and whether you're an online grinder or live game player. Let's see if we're running with high rollers or micro warriors.
God, I don't like that river. Such a good river for you. If you put me on jacks, right? You figure I have jacks, you have to bet that river card now. So many, I leveled myself with the pause in the turn. You know what I mean? On the turn, I studied, and like sort of changed my range in his eyes, which forces me to go like that.
Daniel calls.
I had the nuts.
Oh, that's good too. Quads!
Negreanu is looking down on 10-9 suited. Shlomi opens to $475 with pocket kings, the classic early position value raise that invites dominated high cards to make mistakes. Boniati flats behind, a routine set mine that keeps the opener wide and creates a pot where overpairs are forced to play multi-way. On the button, Negreanu overcalls with 10-9 suited. He buys position against a likely overpair, keeps the pot single raised so his connected hand can realize, and preserves a post-flop story that can credibly arrive at straights and two-pair on many middling runouts. With 3 players and deep stacks, Negreanu's plan is to control price now and fight for leverage later. The board rolls out wet and middle, exactly the texture that pressures an opener's range. Shlomi continuation bets $1,525 into 2 opponents to tax the spades and charge the gutters while protecting his likely overpair. Boniati steps aside, Negreanu continues. With top pair, strong kicker for this configuration, and position, calling is superior to raising. It keeps Shlomi's bluffs alive, avoids isolating versus the strongest value, and retains every turn card that can add equity or scare an overpair. He's now set up to maneuver without inflating the pot unnecessarily. The Queen of Hearts lands. That card is fine for kings, but improves Negreanu's believable value region to include Queen 9 and some 2-pair that could have peeled. Shlomi opts for a measured $2,125, continuing his value protection line, without bloating the pot on a card that helps the caller more than the pre-flop raiser. Negreanu calls again, disciplined and deliberate. He keeps his range uncapped, realizes equity with 10-9, and holds the option to seize the narrative on favorable rivers, or punish thin value bets with a polarizing raise. The river is the 8 of clubs, a quiet but meaningful shift that completes 6-7 and strengthens combos like 9-8 that Negreanu can absolutely show up with. Shlomi puts out a small $3,000 bet, more price setting than power, trying to get looked up by worse pairs while avoiding a big decision. Negreanu springs the trap to $12,800, polarizing himself to straights, 2-pair, or sets, and telling a story perfectly consistent with his passive turn. 10-9 is a sharp candidate. It blocks calls from Queen 9, doesn't block missed spades, and represents exactly the value holdings that beat an overpair.
Aces or kings? Can I say that, or is that illegal? Heads up. I can say what he has, but not what I have. Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking aces or kings.
I appreciate you watching this far. Could you please give this video a like? Thank you.
And Shlomi's now thinking, if you've read me for aces or kings, surely you can beat aces or kings. I have to fold.
Goofy limps the big blind with King 10 suited. Limping protects his range, invites isolates from hands he dominates, and keeps the pot manageable out of position with a hand that plays cleanly post-flop. Nick Airball isolates to $1,200 from under the gun with Queen 9 offsuit. The raise pressures the limp, seizes initiative, and expects to realize equity against a single caller. Goofy calls. Suited Broadway is too strong to fold, too thin to 3-bet out of position, and calling keeps Nick's range wide. Goofy checks. On an ace high, 2-diamond texture, Nick is supposed to continuation bet often, so checking lets that happen. Nick obliges for $700, a small, range-driven stab that folds air and taxes random backdoors while leaning on his perceived ace advantage. Goofy check raises to $1,700. King 10 of diamonds is a premium semi-bluff, gut shot to Broadway. the king high diamond draw, and even a royal flush. Raising clears out weak queens and 5s to 9s, charges worse draws, and starts a pot that can realize maximum value when diamonds or Broadway materialize. Nick calls with middle pair and position, keeping bluffs in and retaining control of the pot size. Bang! The third diamond lands and Goofy upgrades from a draw to the nuts. With his story perfectly coherent after the flop raise, he leads $2,000. Leading now Prince, worse diamonds pay, stubborn Queen X pays, and some Ace X talk themselves into continuing because the Jack is a counterfeit scare rather than a clean killer in their minds. Goofy goes for a small, irresistible value bet of $3,500. After check raise, lead, and a blank river, this size targets exactly what Nick shows up with most often.
Makes the call. Royale with cheese.